In this video, we'll be talking about file systems and paths on a supercomputer. So a file system is essential to the working of any computer. Even if you've never heard the term file system, you've interacted with it extensively. It's made up of the many thousands of files that are present on a computer and the directories that organize those files. On your personal or work computer, you typically use a graphical interface to navigate around the file system with files and folders, but on the command line, a location in a file system is represented by a path. As a note, a file container in graphical user interfaces is generally referred to as a folder, and on the command line it's referred to as a directory. So you'll mainly hear us say directory in this class, but a directory is completely equivalent to a folder. It's just a terminology difference. To illustrate what a path is, here I am on a Windows machine with my File Explorer open, and my current working directory where I'm working is my user home folder. On the left here is the tree showing my folders and subfolders, and on the top there's the navigation bar, and I click around to navigate. Pretty basic stuff, you do it 100 times a day. If I click on the side of the navigation bar, I can also see what's called the absolute path to this folder. Since I'm on Windows, this absolute path starts with a drive name, in this case my C drive, and the different nested directories in the path are separated by backslashes. On Mac and Linux systems, the absolute path starts with a / known as root, and / then separate the directories as well. General terminology for navigating file systems is that moving down a folder means going into a subfolder and adding something to the end of a path. In this case, documents, then work, then my papers. So you can see that this path is getting longer. Conversely, going up or back a folder means moving to a parent folder and removing the end of the path. So you can see that this path is getting shorter. The path to any specific file consists of the path to its parent directory, then your / separator, then the file name. So moving to a Linux command line on the class AWS, when I log in, I automatically get placed in my home directory, and I can see with pwd that the absolute path where I currently am has this first root /, then users, then my username separated by /. I'm going to list the subdirectories in my current working directory, and when I navigate to a subdirectory using CD, you'll see the absolute path to where I am gets longer, just like on my personal computer file system. An absolute path is like an address. It always starts with root and gives all of the directories you have to move through to get to a file. No matter where I am on the file system, say I'm in this folder with some data files, I can always use the absolute path to get back to this directory or to refer to a specific file. Often you will want to write absolute paths in scripts so that there's no ambiguity of where you're pointing things to. A relative path is intuitive, but requires you to know where you are. Just like I navigated into subfolders or parent folders on my personal computer by clicking on them, you can navigate into subdirectories or parent directories by typing their names. In this case, day 2 is a relative path. So is worksheets. If I go back to my home directory, I can string together directories with the / separator. So you see this is several layers of directories, but it's still a relative path. It doesn't start with the root /, and it only works from my home directory. Last thing with relative paths is a few important shortcuts. The first is a single period or dot, which represents your current directory. This isn't helpful for CD because you're already in your current directory, but it is for many other commands, such as if you want to copy a file from somewhere else to your current directory, you would say rsync path to that file, then dot. That's a single dot. 2 dots represents the parent directory of your working directory. It's the same as an up arrow in a GUI system. Unlike the single dot, you'll use the .. shortcut all the time with navigation to move up directory trees. You can and should string them together too. The last useful shortcut to mention is the tilde. This represents your home directory, so cd tilde will always get you home. I want to emphasize here that you will use both absolute and relative paths for many different commands. Say, I don't want to change my current working directory, but I do want to see what's in another one. I can list with ls using an absolute path, such as looking in this data directory. Or I can ls using a relative path to see what's in workshop day 2. But you can see by my command prompt that my working directory has not changed. Hopefully this gave you a good sense for file systems and paths in Linux.